Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today we are here for another Battle of Booktubers vlog. If you all are unaware of what this competition entails, I will have the announcement video up in the cards as well as in the description down below. You guys are welcome to go and check it out. You can go and check out all of the previous rounds. We are currently in the championship round, and so those are the books that I'm going to be reading are the books that were recommended to me by one of the champions. I don't know who. I have to make my guess at the end of this video for these two books, so we'll see. The two books that will be featured in this video are We Are the Dead and Ascendant. And We Are the Dead is their first recommendation, so it will receive more points as far as a multiplier goes, and then Ascendant is their second recommendation. So I'm just going to talk to you guys right now about We Are the Dead. This will be kind of my first little snippet for you guys, my first reaction. First off, this one has a weird backstory. So this book is very, very obscure, and I think it was in 2023 in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep, and so I was scrolling on my Kindle in like the shopping area on your Kindle for like cheap books, and I found this book for like $2.99 on Kindle, and I had never heard of it before. I've never heard of the author, who is Shackle. But it sounded interesting to me. I purchased it, I put it on my Kindle, I never thought about it again. And so when it came up in my recommendations, I mean, the champions are going hard this round. Like, they have come with titles that I have never heard of before, authors I have never heard of before. And this one would be in that pile with the exception of that really odd night that I was just scrolling on Kindle and this happened to be really cheap. So it was very odd that this came up as one of my recommendations when it is a book I was interested in. And I just have never gotten around to it because, you know, it fell onto the black hole of my Kindle and I never got to it. So I am glad that it was recommended to me because it gives me a reason to read a book I already own, and I'm enjoying it so far. It's a little complex as far as the POVs, the world dynamics. To give you kind of an overall synopsis, we have two kingdoms that have been at war for a very long time, or they, not necessarily at war, but they have been at odds. They do not like each other. There is literally a wall that separates the people that we are following. Gia, I think, is the kingdom's name, and then you have the Eagle, and there is like a war of the past where it was very, very brutal, but Gia had giants. And I don't know if that was just like the title that they had or if they were actual giants, but they built this magnificent wall to keep the Eagle out. There originally was magic in this kingdom, and that's become more and more rare, but they do have, within Gia, they have this warrior class that are called the Shulka. And the Shulka have a mantra that talks about how we are the dead. They fight as though they are already dead. Their purpose in life is to fight for the lives of everyone who lives in Gia. And so they have always been the protectors of the realm. They are also at the high end of the caste system within this kingdom. And so there are some people within the kingdom who do not really appreciate the Shulka, is kind of the nice way of saying it. And so at the very, very beginning of the story, you have the Eagle actually coming to war with the Gia, and the Shulka, who are the Gia warriors, were kind of like brushing it off. Like, it's going to be fine. Like, we're not worried about it. And the battle does not go the way that they thought. The Eagle have been preparing for this battle for what seems like a very long time. They have a lot of weapons and magical entities, beings that are also fighting with them, and they essentially destroy the Shulka. So this kingdom of Gia is taken over by a force that they are not used to, and they take out their religion. They replace it with something else, and they are under, what is that, martial law, essentially. And so we are following multiple individuals. The main person, at least I gather so far, the main person that we're following, her name is Tenstra. And she is the daughter of a legendary Shulka warrior. And so at the very beginning of the story, she was actually at her school and she was planning to kill herself because she had been shamed. She essentially was in a battle and ran and left all of her warrior, like the band of individuals that she was working with, left them to die. She ends up being taken to the office of, we later find out, is her uncle. And he kicks her out. He expels her from the school and essentially shuns her from the Shulka society, which means that she's going to have a harder time in life because she will be disowned by her family. And she's kind of okay with it because she doesn't want to be a warrior. She has made herself into someone the e-girl will not suspect because she is constantly trying to hide from her past. She doesn't want anyone to know that she is related to this legendary figure. And so we follow her process, and eventually she does get involved with the revolution of sorts that is forming. We also have some Shulka warriors who are still alive and in hiding that are planning this revolution and getting information from various sources around the city to take the e-girl down. So I'm at 37% currently, and they are trying to get the royalty who have been shut up in their crown or in their castle and essentially waiting for the e-girl to come in and execute them. The revolution, they have actually figured out a way to get their prince and princess and queen out. No, I think the little girl is the queen. I want to call her princess because she's a child. But anyway, they get them out of the castle, and that's kind of where I am now. They're trying to figure out how to get them out of the city and protect them from the e-girl forces who are now searching for them because they realize that they've escaped the castle. So there's a lot going on. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. The world is very dark. The one thing I am a little concerned with, because there are so many moving parts and the world is so vast, I don't have a lot of connection to the characters just yet. I'm only 33 or 37% in, so that could change as I get further and further along in the book. I'm enjoying the plot. I think that it's fast-paced, it's dark and gritty, which I do enjoy, but I'm just a little concerned that I'm going to get to the end and be like, okay, like, that was an okay book, which I don't think would be a bad rating by any means. I feel like it would probably be maybe a 4-star, 3.75, depending on how I feel. We'll see. I might gain some connections as we move further along the book, but I will check in with you guys whenever I get a little bit further. Hello, friends. For you, it's only been a couple of seconds, but for me, it's been like a month since I updated you. I can't tell you how far in because I'm reading it on Audible and I don't care to do the math to tell you, but I know I'm about 2/3 of the way through. I'm on chapter 40, if that helps you guys who have a physical copy, but I'm enjoying it. I don't think it's going to be a new favorite. It's definitely 4-star range. I am less confused now about what's happening in society, and I started reading this throughout February. I shouldn't say I didn't pick it up at all, but I didn't get very far in February because I made it my nighttime read on my Kindle because I do own this on my ebook, but I have been listening to it on Audible for the majority of the story. But because I didn't have a lot of time throughout the day, I just made it my nighttime read, and which means I was reading like 5 to 10 minutes every night because when I lay down, my body does not allow me to stay up and read. But I figured out while I was reading the ebook that it's Geon. So you have the Geon, who are the people who have originally fought the e-girl, and the Geon originally had magic, and the magic is depleting. I swear, and I don't know, maybe I didn't say this in the first clip, but in my head, I was thinking that the Geon were giants, because the way that the audiobook narrator pronounces it, it's like the Geons. And I was like, it's giants, right? Like, I just thought like it was a weird way, I don't know. That's how my head was. But I knew that they weren't like giants in stature because that has never been described. And so I was trying to figure out like, what does that even mean? Is that like an ancient way of like referring to like who their forefathers were, and maybe they were giants. I don't know, but it's the Geons. I've enjoyed Tenstra's POV a lot. She is a coward, and I find it really intriguing to follow a coward's perspective who is legitimately cowardly in their thoughts. I think a lot of stories do try and lean into like a reluctant hero, but I don't know that I've ever read a character that is quite so, I don't want to call her wimpy because she definitely has had some events happen in her life and in the pages that I've read that are horrendous, and she does things that are not wimpy at all. But throughout the story, when you're in her head, you can see her reasoning behind how she reacts to certain things and how it's all about survival, and it doesn't matter. Like, she's not trying to be brave. She's not trying to do the right thing. She's just trying to survive. And that's not everything. There are pivotal moments and character growth throughout the story where you are starting to see her make decisions for better reasons, but I just find her character very interesting to follow. I think I told you guys at the very end of the first clip that I did for this book is that there is a journey with the queen and a mage. They're trying to escape, and Tenstra is the one who ends up having to help them. And I have really liked that group of characters following their story. The politics are also really interesting. We have a character named Jax, who is the one-armed Shulka that I talked about, I think, in the first clip, one of the other POVs. In the middle of this book, you do get to see a little bit more of Jax, and I really like being in the mind of someone who is so strategy heavy within a military system. He has history in this, and seeing how they react to different things. I won't tell you what, but that's been intriguing as well. The only character that I do appreciate being in the story, but I really don't like, is Drin. He's very interesting as far as his decisions, and sorry, my cat is attacking my hand. Ow. Drin is one of those characters that I think you're supposed to kind of hate. He has some interesting views on how to get their lives back to where they were, and some of them are very violent. And having his perspective mixed in with the political mind of Jax is very complex, and I do enjoy the contrast of those two characters. I am a little worried about Drin and him having some impacts on the Shulka's efforts in fighting the Egrill, whatever they're called. I'm going to call them the Skulls because that's what all of the characters call them, which is probably why I can't remember what their names are. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I think that it's dark. I think that it's desperate. Like, the characters are desperate to survive, and they're going to do anything to get to where they need to be. And seeing all of these different characters in this world all be wrapped up in the same harshness of the world, but in different lights, in different ways. You have Tenstra, who's in the middle of all of it because she has the queen who's traveling and trying to get away. And then you have Jax, who is leading the rebellion. You have Dren, who is in his own way trying to lead a rebellion. You also do get one of the bad guys, which I'm not going to tell you who it is, but you do get one of their perspectives to see kind of what they're thinking. And that's also intriguing because he definitely is a bad person and doesn't shy away from being a bad person. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where the end is. It's been very fast paced, even though it's taken me a month and a half to read this book. That is not in any way saying that I was bored with the book or didn't want to pick it up. It just was circumstances surrounding the busyness of my life in the moment. I wasn't able to continue with it at the pace that I wanted to, but I'm enjoying it. So let's see how the ending goes. I'm back for my final update of We Are the Dead, and I really like the ending. I think that this is a good kind of leaving off point for a first book in a series. I think that it leaves some wiggle room for growth and for us to kind of see where this story goes, why we got this section of the story. I'm trying to be vague because it's the end of it's the end of the first book, but yeah, I've already purchased the second book in the series, and I only read the first chapter though. It's already giving me kind of a completely different vibe from the first book, and we're getting a different perspective, which I really appreciate. I'm not going to even tell you or give you hints on who, but I've enjoyed seeing that aspect. But anyway, this isn't about the second book, it's about the first book. I will tell you that if this wasn't a series, I would not have been satisfied with the ending, but since it is, I do think that this is a really good place for this author to leave the story, because if you wanted to, I think you could leave, like, kind of wash your hands of the series and walk away. There are definitely going to be some things kingdom-wise that you're not going to understand or you're not going to see an end to because this is a series, but if you guys have watched any of my videos on what I like and dislike in series endings, kind of what I expect, I like a series where at the end of each book, it feels like things are wrapped up, but there is still room for the author to move forward. Maybe there's a through line that we could continue throughout the entire series. I like that, but I do want there to be kind of a resolution at the end of each of the series books. It's kind of my favorite way of a series to be written, and this succeeded in that. I think that we had a really nice, like, I don't want to say full circle moment, but like we understood what the objectives, and we got to kind of the objective at the beginning, which I appreciate. I'm being super vague. I'm not really giving you guys any information, but I did like the ending. I liked how fast-paced it was. I did really appreciate the pacing of the ending. I appreciated the high stakes as well. Our characters go through the ringer at the end. One complaint I will say is it did feel a little, I don't even know how to describe this, but it was like there were several events that happened that felt like they were happening to push the plot forward. I guess that's how I'll describe it. I didn't mind it in the end. I think that we got to where I wanted to be, but in the middle of it, because it's so fast-paced and we just have event after event after event, it felt very much like certain things were placed in the book because we needed to move forward. And because I noticed it, that I think is probably one of my complaints. There's also a trope in this that I'm not super a fan of. I'm not going to tell you what because it's at the end of the book. But I just wish that authors wouldn't do it. I think there are better ways of creating suspense. I'll say that in tragedy. But anyway, I think this was a success. I'm going to end up rating this a 4.25. So I really like it. I'm going to continue with the series. It's a really fun and different story, especially because of Tenstra's point of view with the kind of cowardly POV. But it's political fantasy as well. And to the Egirl, I know in the last video I was struggling between Ygritte and Egirl, and I fixed it before I sat down, and now I'm back having issues again. I'm pretty sure it's Egirl, but I did like the dynamics between the two factions, the Gian and the Egirl, and I can see that that dynamic is going to continue in the second book as well, for us to kind of see both sides. I'll say we get perspectives from both sides, which I always like. I am back for my first update of my second book of this vlog, and that book is Ascendant. I do have to say, this is a book I had never heard of prior to the Battle of the Booktubers. After I started reading this, I did see Elliot Brooks put a video out that this was on the thumbnail, but I didn't watch the video because I don't want the video to, you know, change my mind or push me in a certain direction. So I just decided to go in blind. And I did read the synopsis, but really the only thing I got out of the synopsis is the fact that this book does have a blind dragon, which if you guys have been watching my channel for a little bit, I have been a little bit focused on dragons recently. I am trying to find exactly what I like about dragon stories and what I don't like about dragon stories. And I was pleasantly surprised with what this book had in store. I am 30% in, and so I wanted to give you guys an update so I can continue it because I am just absolutely loving it. It is a breath of fresh air when it comes to fantasy books regarding dragons because of a couple of things. One, I really do like our main character, Holt. He is definitely flawed, very young and naive, and has kind of an admiration, if not a little bit of an obsession with dragon riders. He's always, wanted to be a dragon rider, and that's always been out of reach for him because he is a cook's son specifically. He is helping his father in the kitchens and his apprentice. And his father does have the honored job of cooking for the dragons. They actually have this, I think this was just a really cute detail for the book. The dad has a book of recipes that are for all the different types of dragons and what they like to eat. And it's like his most prized possession. And I just really like that little tiny detail in the story. It's not like a huge part of the book so far, but I really enjoyed that part. And the dragons are coming into the town that Holt lives in, so his dad is preparing a feast for all these dragons and their dragon riders. The most well-known dragon rider is coming into town, and Holt is bound and determined that he is going to meet him. And so he talks to his father, tries to get out of his duties that evening. That doesn't end up working because of some circumstances surrounding the feast that Holt needs to be there, and he bails essentially and says, no, I'm gonna go and see these dragon riders because that's what I want. He ends up running into one of the old dragon riders. I'm not gonna tell you too much about him, even though he has become one of my favorite characters. Although I can't remember his name at the moment. They gave him a nickname because of something that he's brewed. They said something the brooding. Broad the brooding. Oh, I'm gonna have to pay attention. But anyway, he's becoming one of my favorite characters because he's very gruff and rough and definitely has a past that we're learning throughout the story, which I find very fun. But he tries to impart some knowledge into Holt about the life of a dragon rider and that it's not all kicks and giggles, and just to try and help him see the world how it is. And one of those things that he ends up showing him is what happens to the dragon eggs. They have this choosing ceremony where everyone goes and they can see the different eggs be chosen by the matriarch. And I'm not going to give you too many details about what exactly happens, but all of these processes and things that Holt learn ends up putting him into a position where he gets a hold of a dragon egg and raises a dragon outside of the traditional norms. His dragon's name is Ash, and I have absolutely loved getting to know Ash and Holt and their personalities and their bond with one another. That's one of the things that I've really enjoyed about the dragons in particular, is the process of bonding with a dragon and what that means for the dragon rider. The relationship between them and how it impacts both, how it's a mutual relationship, but originally as Holt is finding things out about the dynamics between dragons and their riders, he sees it as kind of parasitic. He thinks that, and he doesn't like super go into like a tailspin or anything about this information, but he has this moment of thinking like dragon riders are stealing from dragons and that they're not actually beneficial, and he learns the little intricacies of the magic and the shared bond between a dragon rider and a dragon. And I find it very fun. I also like the fact that we do have different types of dragons. They have different colors, and they have different tastes because of like the little recipe book. The different dragons are going to enjoy different types of cuisine, which I find really fun. And yeah, I'm having a blast. I think it's a good time. There are definitely some scary things happening in Holt's kingdom. We have but without giving you guys too much information, we do end up seeing some betrayals and some war coming into a peaceful area, and they kind of have to figure out how to deal with that. So I'm interested to see where the story goes from here. I'm so excited that this is a series and that I get to continue with these characters even after this story, although I guess that's not always true. Sometimes it could be a new cast of characters, but I really like the world that has been created. I love the wholesome moments where we get to see Ash and Holt's bond mixed with the realistic, almost grim darkness of some of the scourge, which is the elements and the things that the dragon riders are fighting. I really like it. I like the dynamic. I like the contrast of the different things that I've seen so far in this book. So I am going to go read. That's why I'm talking to you guys, because I want to continue the book and I haven't been able to because I needed to sit down and chat with you guys about my initial thoughts. So I will be back whenever I have another update for you guys. I am back for another update and I am well past where I should have stopped. I meant to stop around 67% and I think I'm closer to 75%. I'm on chapter 50 for those of you following along at home. And I'm absolutely loving this story. It's why I had a hard time figuring out where 67% was, because I just kept not looking and just continued to jive with the book as I'm walking around. I love this. I think it's fantastic. So I will give you a few more details. One of the things I talked about in that first clip was the scourge, which I described as kind of zombie-esque, which is correct. But it's a lot more than that, and I vaguely did that or told you guys about that in the first clip. But we do have the blight, which now I understand does eventually lead to the scourge, so people can get like this scaliness on their skin, they get sick, kind of green tinted, and then eventually they will fall to the scourge and their body is controlled by the scourge. I'm not exactly sure what the scourge is, but like what's controlling them. But yeah, they will rise from the dead and become an issue for the living. But we not only have humans that are becoming, falling to the scourge, but we have animals, insects. There's also, though, these insectoid things that have like scorpion tails, and they also have queens, and it seems to be what is controlling everybody. And so I've seen this before in fantasy where we almost have like a hive mind villain, where you have a race of individuals that can control other things around them by, it's almost like parasitical type thing, and you have like you have key components like linchpins throughout the army that control, various portions of the army. And I think that's what's happening. That's my understanding anyway. The war, like the tension between the Scourge and our character Holt and his like ragtag gang of individuals has been really fun to watch. And the learning components of Holt figuring out how to become a dragon rider and how to enhance his bond with Ash is really fun. I like a fantasy book that explains the magic to me. And so if that's not your jam, this probably wouldn't be a book for you, because it does go into like how certain things work, and I really enjoyed that aspect. And we've gotten more of the cookbook today, guys. I love a story about food. It's one of the things that I enjoy, but I don't look for it. But when it pops up in books, it always makes me happy. And there's a moment when Brode ends up killing a deer and comes back, takes the meat, and is getting ready to cook it. And Holt like explains how to like make sure you have a good sear on both sides. And then he goes foraging for mushrooms. And I don't know, I really enjoyed that component. You also have a couple of moments where Holt can feel through his bond the enjoyment of the dragon eating certain foods. And it's so wholesome. In a very like messed up world, we still have these little moments of peace and tranquility. And I like that. I also really have gotten attached to I'm not going to remember her name. Oh no. Starts with a T. Talia, I think, is her name. So she's the princess that Brode and Holt are traveling with as they are trying to escape some dire circumstances that happened in the first little bit of the book. And her relationship with Holt has grown on me. And it's supposed to. It's the type of character arc that they have. But I like their budding friendship and how the dynamics between the two of them are so different, because she comes from royalty, he is a cook, so he's used to being a servant and being treated certain ways by royalty. She also is used to kind of being the exception, the person who is the best at things, and Holt kind of lucks into a lot of things that he happens to be really good at. That is something, if I was going to complain about something in the storyline, I would complain that Holt is very much a chosen one. Like, he does have struggles. I'm not saying that he doesn't just automatically have things that work for him. He has dire straits that he goes through in order to make the gains that he has with his dragon riding ability. But it is very quick. It's very fast paced. And it does seem, according to Talia and some of the other dragon riders that we have heard about and run across, that his progress is very much out of the norm. And so if that's something that bothers you, then maybe stay away from this one. I didn't realize that this is a YA book. I went to look, and I didn't even find what I was looking for, but I went to look up what Brode's name was. I'm almost positive it's Brode. For whatever reason, his name doesn't stick with me. Names, apparently, just don't stick with me in general. But I went to Goodreads to see if I could find a review that had his specific name spelled out, since I'm just listening to the audio, and I didn't find it, but I had a couple of people, the very first line of their review is like, this is YA fantasy at its best, and I'm like, this is YA? And then I started thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, it is YA. This is a YA I like, guys. So whoever recommended this to me, kudos to you, because I typically hate YA, and I really have enjoyed this. It's like a breath of fresh air. I'm loving my time with it. One other thing that I will say before I go and finish the book, to tell you guys what my final thoughts are, is there is a moment in this that was just very heart-wrenching, and I love it when... Now, it gives me more context knowing that this is YA. I love it when our characters have a pivotal moment that we see where not everything works out. And you would think that would be common. And I think in most stories that probably is something that we witness, but I don't know, I really liked this one particular moment, and it was a little convenient that things happened a certain way, but I felt like it was really heartfelt and gut-wrenching. I really enjoy when a story can give me a moment with a character where they have to grow through adversity and through tragedy that doesn't feel emotionally manipulative. I don't know how else to describe it than that. There have been so many stories that I've read where a character will have something traumatic happen, whether or not that be, something happens in their quest where they can't continue along a certain path, if they lose a friend or someone betrays them, if they lose a loved one, if they have some form of disaster happen to them. I feel like there are certain moments that feel fake and feel forced, and this wasn't like that at all. I really felt for Ash and especially Holt in that moment, and it really just endeared both of their characters to me. I also think that it served as a purpose to strengthen their bond, and also test out something that they didn't know they were capable of. That's all I'll say about that. I'm trying to be vague. But anyway, so I'm loving it so far. I think if I was to predict what my rating will be, I'm thinking maybe a 4.5 at this point. It could be a 5-star. I have gotten 5-star vibes with certain elements of it, so I'm not ruling that out at the moment. And I do think I would like to own this collection, or own this series for my collection. It's a little pricey, but I think it might be worth it. I might just buy one at a time because it is rather difficult for me to get a hold of a copy of this. My library doesn't have these, so I had to purchase the audiobook through Audible, like using a credit. But I've looked it up on Barnes & Noble, and they are a little bit pricier, but I think it's just because it's not very well known. So, and I don't mind spending a little bit more money on a story that I'm really enjoying. So it is something I'm considering buying for my collection, which means something in and of itself. But anyway, I will talk to you guys once I've finished the book. I have finished Ascendant, so I am here to talk to you guys about my final thoughts, give you my rating, and wrap up this vlog. So I will give you my thoughts first. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a lot of fun for all of the reasons that I've already stated in my previous clips, especially the dragons in this. I think it's very fun to see all of the different types of dragons in the storyline, how the magic is the same for all of them, but they all have their differences within their own magics. I also really enjoyed the characters. I think that this is definitely YA, but it's YA that I actually enjoyed. So that is a major perk for the storyline. I don't think that the discussions that our characters were having were angsty or one-sided. I feel like there was a lot of growth within our characters. There was a lot of thinking about what impacts them, what impacts others, and I don't know, I just liked how it was handled. I didn't mind being in these characters' heads even though they were young. There is a reveal at the end that I also find really cool. And so that was fun to be able to get to that part and experience that with the characters. I'm obviously not going to tell you guys what that was. The one thing I will say kind of pulled this back from full enjoyment for me is how tropey it got, and honestly how similar it is to some of the fantasy games I have played. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just feel like I feel like it was a little out of place, just slightly, because a lot of the story was very serious and cozy, kind of wholesome, and then we have like these odd moments of, like, for instance, there is a power that our main character ends up getting. He grows into this power and he has to give it a name. And I can't tell you what that name is because it spoils something, but he gives it a name, and our female main character, Talia, laughs at him and is like, "You're obviously not very creative." And she tells him that he should call it consecration, which is definitely a fantasy power that I've seen in a whole bunch of games. And so I know that it's like poking fun at itself in the fact that obviously that's not very creative either, but it kind of, those moments pulled me out of the story just slightly because of how wholesome and serious some of the other tones were. So I do think that there's a way to do that. And I'm not saying that the story is like wholly serious or wholly bleak or anything like that, and that it can't have fun. I just feel like when things are so ingrained in a popular trope or something that has been done before, and it's meant to be, like it's not trying to trick you into thinking that it's new, but I feel like you have to be a little subtle with it, or you just have to go all the way and everything has to be really goofy and over the top. And I just don't feel that it was that way. And so those things kind of pulled me out of the story just a smidge. So I am going to end up rating this a 4.5 star. I still really, really enjoyed it. I want to continue the series. I want to know what's next for Holt and Ash. That means that I am done with this vlog. So this booktuber gave me 2 recommendations. That was We Are the Dead, which was their first recommendation. That book got a 4.25 star, and their second recommendation was Ascendant, and that book got a 4.5 star. So this booktuber is one to beat because they did really well. Now, before we leave, I do have to give you a prediction of who I think that this booktuber is. And oh, I'm already doubting myself. I wrote down all my predictions before I started reading, and I want to stay true to that. I might maybe in my very last vlog do like one final, like, I think these are who recommended me each book if I do change my mind as I'm reading. But I have this slotted as Rainy's books. So the person I'm thinking that it also could be is Sam, because of the fact that there's a YA option. I don't know though. I thought I had Sam in the bag with one of my other predictions, so maybe I'm wrong. So I'm gonna predict for right now that Rainy is the person who recommended me these books. I'm probably wrong, but whoever you are, thank you for the recommendations because I had a lot of fun. Don't forget to tune in next Tuesday for the next vlog in Battle of the Booktubers. If you guys have missed any episodes, I will have them down in the description down below into a playlist that you guys can go to and join us in all of the fun. Don't forget to prepare for the live show, which I'm sure I've announced at this point in time, and it will also be in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!